April 1945. The Führer Bunker. Berlin is burning, and Adolf Hitler can barely walk to the bathroom. Think about it. We are talking about a guy who once commanded the largest army in Europe. Now, he is shuffling down a concrete hallway, like he's auditioning for a low-budget zombie movie. Every 20 meters, he has to stop to catch his breath. His entire body is shaking violently. Drool is spilling from the corner of his mouth. His personal guard watches this happen and thinks just one thing. What the hell happened to this guy? The answer to that question lies in a single briefcase. A briefcase full of questionable substances. This is a story about 9 years of catastrophic medical decisions. This wasn't just stress from losing a war. This is the story of how a personal physician turned a dictator into history's most powerful substance abuser. And somehow, nobody stopped him. How did one quack doctor with a needle accidentally become the Allies' greatest asset, destroying Hitler's brain faster than any bomb? Let's dive in. All right, let's meet the doctor. 1936. Hitler needs a personal physician, someone trustworthy, someone with impeccable credentials. So, who does he pick? Dr. Theodor Morell. Morell's resume: treating venereal diseases in Berlin's red light district. That's it. That's the qualification. Exactly the guy you want when you're running a country. But to understand the absurdity of the situation, you have to look at Morell himself. He was a morbidly obese, sloppy man with eternally sweaty hands. Hitler's inner circle, aesthetes like Goebbels and Speer, couldn't stand him. And not just because of his methods. Eva Braun complained that the doctor smelled bad and called him a fat office clerk. Hermann Goering dismissively nicknamed him the Reich Master of Injections. But Morell had one talent that outweighed his lack of hygiene and competence. He knew how to make Hitler feel better. Fast. Hitler hated doctors who made him undress for examinations. He hated those who told him the hard truth about his health. But Morell never argued. Stomach problems? Morell had an injection for that. Fatigue before a speech? Injection. Bad mood because of news from the front? You guessed it. Injection. Hitler loved this guy. Finally, a doctor who didn't give boring advice like get more sleep, or reduce stress, or maybe don't invade Russia in winter. Morell just pulled out a syringe, and the problems went away. Hitler called him his only true friend. Meanwhile, this friend kept a diary where he referred to the dictator as Patient A and meticulously recorded exactly how he was killing him. So, what exactly was in those syringes? Spoiler alert, it wasn't vitamins. It was a chemical bomb. Morell created a unique diet for Hitler. Pervitin. Morell called these vitamin shots. In reality, it was pure methamphetamine, a powerful stimulant that gave the illusion of clarity and omnipotence. Eucadol, a synthetic opioid, twice as potent as morphine. It was injected to relieve tension after the stimulants made him too jittery. Cocaine, in the form of nose drops. The doctor applied this to treat sinusitis. Strychnine. Yes, rat poison. In small doses, it was used as a remedy for bloating. Testosterone and organ extracts. Morell injected Hitler with extracts from the testicles of young bulls and pig livers. Because nothing says virile leader like injecting yourself with bull genitalia. But here is a detail that is often forgotten. Morell wasn't just a bad doctor. He was a brilliant businessman. Using Hitler's patronage, he built a pharmaceutical empire. He patented his own wonder powders for lice and his vitamin bars, which were laced with stimulants. On Hitler's orders, these useless placebos and dangerous chemicals were purchased by the millions for the army. Morell became a multimillionaire, selling chalk and poison to the state while soldiers died at the front. It was corruption and quackery on a cosmic scale. Did Hitler know the truth? Here's where it turns into a dark comedy. Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, a man who suspected his own shadow, started looking sideways at the doctor's vitamins. He secretly stole a few ampules and sent them to an SS lab for analysis. The result came back quickly. Reichsfuhrer, these aren't vitamins. These are heavy psychostimulants. Imagine the level of sketchiness. You are a doctor so shady that even Heinrich Himmler decides you need a drug test. Himmler tried to report this to Hitler, but the Führer's reaction was instant. Leave Morell alone. I don't care what he injects me with, as long as it helps. By 1943, Hitler could no longer exist without the needle. One incident says it all. Summer, 1943. Hitler is scheduled to meet Mussolini. Italy is on the verge of exiting the war. Mussolini is depressed and wants to announce a surrender. Hitler flies there to stop him. Before the meeting, he complains of severe stomach pain. Morell gives him a massive dose of Eucadol, that powerful opioid. The effect was astonishing. Hitler walked into the negotiations and started talking. He talked for 3 hours straight, non-stop, foaming at the mouth. He didn't let Mussolini get a single word in. He was in a state of absolute euphoria. Mussolini, stunned by this onslaught, never managed to mention leaving the war. Hitler flew back, convinced of his diplomatic genius. In reality, it was just a narcotic delusion. Italy surrendered a few months later anyway. By the early 40s, Hitler had become a slave to his injection schedule. Once, he ordered his personal armored train, America, to stop in the middle of nowhere. Was it a military emergency? An air raid? An urgent message from the front? No. He stopped a strategic command train because it was time for his injection, and Hitler was afraid the needle would slip due to the vibration of the wheels. Meanwhile, the Eastern Front is collapsing. Berlin is being bombed. Thousands of soldiers are dying every hour. But sure, let's stop the train so the Führer can get his morning fix. Priorities, ladies and gentlemen. Morell created a classic speedball cycle. Morning, stimulants to wake up and feel like a god. Afternoon, cocaine for clarity. Evening, heavy sedatives to sleep because his brain refused to shut down. This chemical pendulum destroyed his nervous system faster than any stress. Hitler lost the ability to think critically. He stopped distinguishing his fantasies from reality because the chemistry in his blood told him, "You are invincible." But Hitler wasn't alone. The entire Nazi Germany was running on this fuel. We have to understand the context. The Third Reich was perhaps the first state in history to attempt using drugs as a weapon of mass destruction. Germany launched Pervitin in 1937. By 1938, you could buy it in any pharmacy without a prescription. Housewives ate chocolates laced with Pervitin to clean the house faster. Hausfrauenschokolade. Housewife's chocolate. But the main consumer was the Wehrmacht. Tank chocolate, Panzerschokolade, and pills for pilots, Stücketabletten, were widely distributed. During the invasion of France in 1940, German tank crews didn't sleep for 3 days. French intelligence couldn't understand. How are the Germans moving so fast? They have to sleep. They didn't have to sleep. They were on methamphetamine. In the spring and summer of 1940 alone, 35 million pills were delivered to the Wehrmacht. The Blitzkrieg wasn't just a tactical genius. It was a strategy based on chemistry. The German army was a pharmaceutical death machine, but every credit card has a limit. And by 1944, the bill came due for Germany, with interest. September 1944. Hitler complains of a stuffy nose and headaches after the bomb blast, the July 20th plot. His ENT specialist, Dr. Irvin Giesing, prescribes a special remedy, a 10% cocaine solution. Giesing applied this 50 times in 75 days, but one day he miscalculated the dosage. Hitler turns deathly pale. His pupils dilate to the size of coins. His heart rate skyrockets. He gasps for air. He almost loses consciousness. The doctor accidentally gave the Führer a massive overdose. It's irony on a Shakespearean level. The man who killed millions almost died because his ear, nose, and throat doctor couldn't measure nose drops. Do you think this scared Hitler? Do you think he fired the doctors? No. When he came to, he told Giesing, "My head is clear again. Do it again. I have important things to do today." Important things, like moving non-existent armies across a map while in a state of altered consciousness. And so, we return to April 1945. Allied bombing has destroyed the pharmaceutical plants. The drug supply lines are cut. Hitler enters severe withdrawal, compounded by Parkinson's disease. Hans Ratzenhuber, head of security, later testified, "The Führer was pathetic. He dragged his feet. Not only his hands were shaking, his head, his shoulders, his whole body shook. In the morning, he couldn't get out of bed without help. He couldn't lift a glass of water to his mouth. He spilled it all over his jacket." Albert Speer, who visited the bunker in the final days, described Hitler's state as completely divorced from reality. That is a polite way of saying insane. Hitler sat over the map. He screamed at generals, demanding that General Wenck's army come to the rescue. But Wenck's army didn't exist. It had been destroyed. He believed in wonder weapons that would appear any second. This wasn't just hope. This was the delusion of a damaged brain. Years of stimulants had fried his dopamine receptors. He physically could not assess the situation. April 20th, that final appearance with the children. Watch the footage closely. He is 56 years old. He looks 80. He hides his left hand behind his back, pressing it against his body because it is flailing uncontrollably. His movements are jerky, like a puppet. One of the Hitler Youth boys, whose cheek Hitler pinched, later recalled, "There was an emptiness in his eyes. He looked like a sick old man who belonged in a nursing home, not leading a fighting nation." On April 22nd, with the Russians already in the suburbs of Berlin, the final scene between doctor and patient played out. Morell came to Hitler with another syringe, but Hitler flew into a rage. In a fit of paranoia, he screamed that Morell was a traitor, that he wanted to inject him with morphine to knock him out and hand him over alive to Stalin in a cage. "Get out!" he screamed. "Take off your personal physician's uniform and go back to your mansion." And Morell ran. He abandoned the patient he had milked for 9 years. He managed to catch one of the last planes out of Berlin. Soon after, he was captured by the Americans. The final irony? The American interrogators were shocked by his appearance. Morell's diaries and a physical exam revealed that he had become addicted to his own injections. He had injected himself so often that his arms and legs were covered in scars and abscesses. The dealer became a victim of his own stuff. A classic ending. Without his dealer, Hitler faded within a week. His speech became slurred. His legs practically gave out. His drooling became uncontrollable. April 30th, a gunshot and cyanide. For a long time, historians debated, was the drug story true or just a myth created by the victors? But in 2018, French scientists were granted rare access to fragments of Hitler's teeth, held in the FSB archives in Moscow. What did they find? First, blue stains on the dental work, a chemical reaction between cyanide and metal. This confirmed the method of suicide. Second, the horrific state of his mouth. Periodontitis, rot, destroyed roots, massive tartar buildup. Expert Philippe Charlier stated, "This is the mouth of a man who spent years consuming chemicals, neglecting hygiene, and suffering from the dry mouth typical of stimulant abuse. The man who spent 12 years screaming from podiums about genetic purity, Aryan perfection, and a healthy lifestyle. He was a vegetarian and didn't smoke. Died with teeth that looked like those of a back alley junkie. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a rusty scalpel." Why did he let this happen? Because dictatorship cannot tolerate weakness. His ego was built on the myth of the Superman. The Führer does not sleep. The Führer does not get tired. The Führer makes no mistakes. To maintain this myth, He needed chemistry. The injections gave him the illusion that he was still that energetic leader from the 1930s. They masked the reality. He was a sick, aging man leading his people into the abyss. This is narcissism plus addiction. And this pattern is not unique. Hermann Goering ended the war as a bloated morphine addict playing with gemstones while the Luftwaffe burned. The script is always the same. Power, ego, denial of limits, drugs, collapse. Hitler is simply the bloodiest example because the price of his high was millions of lives. His decisions, made in a narcotic haze, cost the world entire cities and generations. So, in a twisted way, Dr. Morell was the Allies' best secret weapon. He didn't mean to, but by destroying Hitler from the inside, he helped end the war faster than any army. See you in the next video.